All right, I think we're live. I think this is it. We're now streaming to LinkedIn and YouTube. And welcome to our second ever LinkedIn Live event. We're really, really excited to explore this new format of, doing webinars and communicating all of this knowledge to us. So today, we're here to discuss 4 ways to accelerate your marketing and sales funnel with Salesforce. And I think a lot of these concepts are going to be RevOps concepts that sometimes are a little bit hard to understand. But luckily, we have an expert here to help us decipher those. So Craig, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Lucy. Hey, everyone. My name is Craig Jordan. I'm the founder and CEO of SaaScend. We are a revenue operations consultancy, so hopefully I will be able to actually convey some of those concepts in ways that are easy to absorb. We're excited to be here. We're going to cover a lot of things that are valuable, and please feel free to ask questions as we go through the webinar. We'll be happy to address them.
Thanks, Craig. And at the end, we also have a little treat for anyone that wants to find out more. But Christina, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Anderson. I'm the content marketing manager at SaaScend. So I have the pleasure of working alongside Craig and also collaborating with you, Lucy.
And yes, I'm Lucy Mazalon, and I head up operations at salesforcebend.com. We're one of the leading independent news sites for Salesforce. We publish everything from news to tutorials to career advice. And we have our work cut out as the Salesforce ecosystem keeps expanding. So we love our jobs, and we're so happy that you can join us today. So, like I said, might be a little bit of jargon to begin with, but these are the 4 concepts that we're going to be covering today. So, number 1, map your funnel. 2, implement Lifecycle stages. 3, track funnel velocity. And 4, automate key transitions. And to, I guess, shake things up a little bit, we're trying a new format. We've named it the Rev Jam after the demo jams that a lot of you will be familiar with. The concept's quite simple. I will introduce the question to Craig, and he has 3 minutes to explain it to us. So he's just going to capture the most important points and convey them. And I kid you not, I have a physical bell that I will ring once the 3 minutes is up. So I think we're all set to go. So question 1, what is a funnel mapping exercise, and why is it important? Your 3 minutes starts now.
Love it. Okay. So we work with a lot of B2B organizations. So for all of the B2C folks, your funnel is much more simple. So I'm going to go into the B2B side to start. So the first concept that you need to understand, as the graphic is kind of conveying, it's the typical B2B funnel. You have leads coming in at the top, MQLs, SQLs, and folks progressing through ultimately to closing and winning that deal. So the reason that the funnel as a concept is important is, 1, you want predictability. You want to have a better understanding of how long it takes for folks to move through your marketing, your sales functions, while also being able to know at what rate they're converting. So therefore, you can actually adapt it and improve it. So the first thing is just identifying kind of the stages of the buying process. There's different styles of purchasing. There's transactional selling, there's enterprise selling, and there's the majority of us kind of in the middle of that. So really just knowing kind of who you are, how you're selling, how your funnel works is very, very important, because if you're able to actually know the time that it's taking, if you decrease your sales cycle or that funnel progression, you're going to win more clients or win more customers. You're going to increase revenue with the same amount of resources that you had before. As the second line item is kind of explaining this idea of transitions. So we call it, as the funnel explains, it's kind of like a waterfall. The more you kind of go further down, the more it's kind of less and less and less. And that's just the nature of B2B. If you have a funnel that's kind of 100% of the way through, come talk to us. I will love to invest in your company. But I think in general, that transition, that function of being able to know at what rate we're converting between key stages allows you to figure out, where do we have a leaky funnel? Are there issues or problems, say, for example, from top to middle or middle to bottom? And finally, just being able to know, how long does it take from start to finish? So if we know, hey, we're really, really good at going between individual stages, can we decrease that overall velocity? Are we able to actually kind of make people go through our functions faster? And it's not just your sales cycle, but also your lead to pipeline and ultimately to a close. So you want to view things in kind of those incremental ways, so that way you can improve it. And by improving that, you're going to completely change your business. So I'm not sure how much time I have left, Lucy, but happy to go.
You have 33 seconds, so you can tell us some more.
Yeah. So I think in general, kind of the whole idea of the funnel, it's from a system and technical standpoint, you want to do this within combination of your marketing automation system and Salesforce. So that way your marketing automation system is really the engine that's mapping that funnel. So that way you actually can take action on it. But from a reporting standpoint or a visualization standpoint, Salesforce works really, really well for that. And I know we're going to get into some of those functions later as we go.
Time's up.
Here we go.
Thank you for that, Craig. I was going to actually ask a question at this stage. And it's you said you guys are a RevOps consultancy. Like you guys are making good business from people who need to do this. And I guess a question from my side is, why can't you just hand an organization a blueprint on how to do this?
Yeah. RevOps is really, really hard is the short answer. And the short answer is we could, and we're going to. So we do a lot of things like this because we have the battle scars of many, many years of being in the right place at the right time, of really having a strategic focus on all things operations. And I think RevOps is not only just knowing the technical standpoint, but also how to navigate the politicking of B2B organizations. How do you make people have kind of those kumbaya moments across all functions of the market? So I think in theory, it's the same reason argument, Lucy, why you can hand people kind of a blueprint, but it doesn't mean that they should build their own house. There's a lot of folks that can do DIY, but at the end of the day, I'm useless with a nail and hammer. So I rather hire folks to do that for me, but have that vision of here's what we should and can do. But I think in general, it's that combination, and we have this concept of kind of harmonizing people, strategy, data, and systems. So that way they're all working together. So whether it's a people problem or a technical stack problem or a combination of both, you got to be able to navigate both waters very well.
Amazing analogy. I'm going to borrow that one. All right. So second question, what are lifecycle stages and how do we implement them? The time starts now.
Okay. I'm going to track the time this time because I got that little timer at the top. So the short answer is lifecycle stages are functions within your funnel. They're the stages that you're defining as you're going through. Now we like 5 of them: prospect, MQL, SAL, SQL, and customer. Now, in theory, you can have or adapt whatever terminology you want to use. Instead of calling it a prospect, it can be called a suspect or a lead, or however you want to define it. The concept is the same. And I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. So a prospect is effectively somebody with a pulse. It's someone who's entered your funnel, whether it's from the sales side, whether it's from the marketing side, some sort of contact that has relevancy to your business. A MQL, or a marketing qualified lead, is going to be a record that has met some sort of threshold, whether that's a behavioral activity threshold, a firmographic or demographic, basically knowing that they have some sort of attribute that makes them worthy of our time to kind of send them over to sales, or a combination of both that we then pass the baton to the sales folks to take it, run with it, try to progress them ultimately to a deal. An SAL, or sales accepted lead, is simply a record, that's an MQL, that has been graciously accepted by our sales equivalents to then try to attack them and get them to pipeline. An SQL is when someone hits pipeline, and a customer is obviously when they purchase from you. Now, again, the reason that lifecycle stages are important, and you want to start by just simply defining what they are, is some folks like to have more intermediary steps. They might have more complicated functions. They might have different types of selling. They might have free trial proof of concepts before they actually become customers. So defining this is really important. Secondly, and I think we get into account-based a little bit later, if you want to think of it from an account-based model, this is from the viewpoint of a lead-based model. So these are people, and you're progressing them through your funnel, but you might be trying to progress accounts. Think of the same thing, but instead of an MQL, it's an MQA. Now, how you do this and the way that you kind of go about it is A few things. One, you need to be able to track time stamping. So as they're hitting kind of individual stages, date stamp that. Two, the actual stages themselves. So simple pick list will suffice. And as we're kind of explaining, if you want to get extra brownie points, use a custom object. So that way, if you have people that are re-MQLing.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Almost done. So custom object will allow you to kind of really get into the granular level while also being able to overcome a natural challenge of Salesforce, which is having two disparate database tables, leads and contacts, and instead having a singular table, which allows you to report on your full funnel. So how long does it take someone to get to the top, all the way to the bottom, and what is the rate of conversion as we are going step by step by step? And I will give you the bell.
Our time. Right. So a few acronyms in there that, that people will have to get familiar with. But, how important is it in organizations to set out these acronyms at the very beginning? Because personally, from my experience, I've been in situations where arguing over a 3-letter acronym has really taken its toll on the team, and it's hard to get to an agreement. So maybe if you have any tips that could help with that, or how important is it to do that at the start?
Yeah, it's very important, because everything that you're mapping of kind of the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, to 5, and that's really all it is. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't matter what you call it, but if you're changing 2 and then you're saying, hey, we're going 2 to 3, and now we have 6 things, you've completely changed the underlying architecture of how this thing works, which means that you have to manipulate all of that data to make sure your reporting actually works going forward. So it's kind of like if you pack your bag before you go on a trip, you're like, oh, we're fully prepared, rather than like, oh, shoot, I forgot my toothbrush, and now I got to go figure that out and deal with that. It's the same idea. If you do it right from the start, you're not going to have as many downstream pains as if you don't. Now, that being said, even if you do decide to change things or adapt things, that's okay. It's flexible enough if you know what you're doing. And again, going back to kind of building that house, that you can rip out your bathroom and completely replace it. It's not a problem.
Yeah, as long as you got everyone's agreement to rip out the bathroom. All right. So we'll go on to the next one, which is, what does funnel velocity mean and how do we track it? Your 3 minutes starts now. Yeah,
so funnel velocity, as I've kind of alluded to things before. So we have the individual stages, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have date stamps for those key stages when they occur, and it's a linear progression. In some cases, you might skip steps, like a salesperson engaging with a prospect, and then they bring them to pipeline. There's no MQL, SAL for that type of progression. But the general idea of how velocity works is it's just simply the delta between one date and another date. And you typically want to track this in days, because in general, unless you're a really fast cycle, which in that case, funnels might not be for you, don't do the punishment of hours or minutes or anything like that. Days should be fine. But in general, it's just simply how long does it take to go from a prospect to an MQL to an SAL, and so on and so forth. So the whole idea of that conceptually is pretty simple. Now, the reason that this is important is, again, a lot of people understand what a sales cycle is. It's when a deal is begun and when a deal is closed. And what's that average time? That's effectively the same thing as an SQL to a customer. It's the same concept, but that's not the full funnel. If we know that we generate a lead from a webinar, say, for example, in March, if it takes, let's say, for easy math, 180 days for that person to become a customer, we know that on average, that person's not even going to be a customer until 6 months from now. So tracking that velocity and being able to understand not only the progression between stages, but everything from start to finish, that just allows you to do much better forecasting. And a lot of organizations only focus on opportunity forecasting when you really also should focus on lead forecasting. But velocity is only one part of that equation. You also want to be able to know the rate of conversion to be able to understand what's actually going to happen based on law of averages. So again, the way that you structure this is you have those date stamps, which are matched by some sort of criteria within your MA system, like Pardot or HubSpot. And then they're just date stamping when that threshold is met. So when someone hits pipeline, they become an SQL, date stamp. When someone matches that MQL criteria, date stamp. And then you're just tracking the differences between date 1, day 2, day 2, day 3, so on and so forth.
Yeah, totally. And we've got more than 30 seconds left, so I will throw a question in. So actually, before that, I'm just going to say we've got a real international audience dialing in today. We've got people from Brazil, someone from Indianapolis, Argentina, Mexico. So spreading your funnel velocity around the world. So I guess you were right. You know, when someone comes up with a marketing campaign, they say, okay, they kind of work backwards. In order to achieve our target, we need this many leads, this many, form submissions, and they go backwards. Yeah. But like, why does it stop? Why are you like in the dark between launching the campaign and reporting on the campaign? This, like, I know you said before, keeps the pulse. So I guess people can pull reports of this in Salesforce. Is that, yeah?
100%. So the idea of a funnel and the whole concept is to know, again, to answer a very simple question, Lucy, if I generate a lead in March, what is the average rate and how long is it going to take to progress that person to a deal? And in general, and there's a lot of organizations that talk about this ad nauseum, but that's really the core of it is if I generate 1,000 leads this month, does that allow me to hit our objectives and goals, not only today, but more likely 2 quarters from now or a quarter from now? And so being able to visualize that and see where are we weak? What are our issues? That allows you to adapt it. It's kind of the old adage of you can't change what you can't measure. So there's that function, but more importantly, you can view it as different lenses. So if we're talking from kind of a marketing perspective, if you have paid LinkedIn programs or webinar programs or content syndication programs, you can see, is there something that moves through the funnel at a higher rate of conversion faster than the others? So is there like a speedy hare that, hey, let's do more of this? Because even though it's at a lower rate of conversion, it moves twice as fast as its peers, which means that we need an injection because we're below our number of where we need to be. That's the whole function. And so that it's just a visualization tool to be able to get to those types of answers. And probably where the black box comes into play is like, I don't even know where to start. Like, how do we even do this? So again, date stamps, pick lists.
Yeah. And then the fact that it is Salesforce field data means you can use those standard reports and dashboards to do that quite simply. And, why wait until the opportunity is launched or closed to get that campaign influence? This is being more proactive and filling in the dark spots. Yeah, love it. All right, should we move on to the next one? So what are key transition stages and how should you automate them, or why should you automate them? So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
I'm going to start the timer.
There we go. 18 minutes exactly. Okay. So the first key transition, and we like to call these baton passes. So think like track and field. We're running the 4x4, going from one to the other. So the first one, marketing to sales, arguably the most mission critical. Oh, please go back, Christina, if you don't mind. Oh, I see what you did. Okay, never mind. Keep going. We'll go for it. Okay, so marketing to sales, super, super important. As to why you need to be able to do this. And again, there's natural friction between marketing and sales, which in reality, we're all tied to the same key metric, which is revenue. So anything that's driving that collectively, everyone's winning. So that first baton pass, generally, like I said, it's when an MQL happens. You want to create a feedback loop. How you do that baton pass is usually a combination of grading and scoring. So if you're using Pardot, you have a grade that is an indicator of fit. You have activities that is an indicator of score. So that combination, like an A grade plus a high score, pass over to sales as quickly as possible, versus if it's a lower quality lead, but a lot of intent, maybe we'll still pass it. Then you have to be able to actually route it to the right people. So that way, whether it's vertical based or geo based, and we have a lot of people from different countries on this one. So depending on how we're passing things, determines who it goes to. And then an important step is also making sure we hold our sales reps accountable. So if marketing is doing all this effort to generate these leads, passing to sales, and then they're not kind of acting upon them, that's really bad. So if they're able to actually take that baton, run with it quickly, that means that salespeople are going to have more deals, more functions, because they're getting warmer leads, which are going to move through your funnel faster. So I got a minute and 15 seconds, so we'll go a little quicker. Proposal contracts. I think this is the second one, but I think from the SQL side, I think that's what this is referring to. In general, things that you can do that are going to make this easier to kind of progress faster. Proposal and contract automation is always an easy lift. So PandaDoc, DocuSign, things like that. 2, being able to kind of capture meetings and meeting data, very important. 3, being able to update your data quickly. So Dooley and Scratchpad, really, really great tools. If anyone's entered data into Salesforce before, it's not very fast. So Dooley and Scratchpad make that super fast. We'll go to the next one, Christina, because I got 30 seconds and I don't want to get dinged on.
Yes.
But the final one, SQL to customer. So basically, how are we moving them through as quickly as we can? What are the key stages to kind of keep things progressing? And a key thing here as a salesperson myself is making sure we're always having that next step, but also seeing where things are stalling within our deal cycles. So tracking intermediary stages as an op will be super helpful. There we go.
Wow, that was a pretty meaty one to cover actually in 3 minutes. I think, you saved the best till last. And, you mentioned Scratchpad and Dooley. This is all helping getting sales data in for marketing people to then look at and absorb and build journeys in whatever marketing automation platform they're using. Yep. So it just helps everyone. I mean, it's been, said before and again, getting data in Salesforce, keeping it up to date, data quality. And actually, that was we did a poll a few weeks ago on LinkedIn, asking everyone about their pain points in this area, and poor data quality was on there. So, Craig, was there anything that you wanted to cover that you didn't have time in any of the 4 sections before we get to some questions?
I think on the meatiest one, just to kind of round out the progressing through. So that intermediary stage function. So think of it as, it's not only about the start to finish of your deal cycle, so your opportunity stages and how they're progressing. You also want to know how long is it taking to go from a stage 1 to a stage 2 to a stage 3. Because similar to how the funnel works, of being able to see where are people getting hung up, like what's the thing that's not flowing through in a quick way. Being able to know where deals are stalling, not only on a team level, but an individual rep level, just gives you better perspective from an operation side of how can we improve? Is this a coaching thing? Is this hey, why is Jane so much faster than John? Or why is this person closing at such a higher rate than this person? If you're able to measure those things, you're able to coach your team, make them better, but also look for areas of improvement that, again, if you decrease your sales cycle, that's a huge impact. That just means that you're closing more deals faster. And if you increase that rate of conversion, power to you. So that SQL to customer, super important, because that's where the true kind of winning lies. But everything preceding that, which generates pipeline, is also incredibly important. So to Lucy's point, work backwards and then improve backwards, because then it's going to be easier when you generate webinar leads. If you're rocking and rolling how you're pushing through sales, you'll do great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess coming from a marketing point of view, it's speaking numbers with perhaps the sales team is also good. So we're going to, I said at the beginning, there's a little goodie that you can get a system audit with SaaScend. Christina, would you like to explain a bit more?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lucy. Yes, so you have the opportunity to get free certified expert advice on the current state of your CRM and marketing automation systems. And then, so you'll understand the current state, and then you'll actually receive an action plan of the next steps that you can take to advance to the next stage. So if you scan that QR code, you'll have the opportunity to submit and request your free audit with the SaaScend team.
Amazing. I think that's such a good opportunity, and everyone should take it, really. And what I wanted to say is, not only is this audit free, but also everything that we spoke about in the webinar is stuff that you can do for free, apart from that table with obviously the third-party applications. But it's leveraging Salesforce. You can do all this stuff. So budget is not a consideration when implementing all of these tricks that we've covered. All right. So I think we have time for one more question, if you don't mind, Craig. So hopefully this doesn't put you on the spot too much, but have you ever seen scenarios in your time consulting and running SaaScend where a business has over-engineered all of these things, and what are some signs that you should pause and take a step back before you build something you can't unpick?
All the time. I'm still waiting to get stuff. So that's a softball question, Lucy, but that's okay. But I think in general, no, it happens constantly. And I think it's just kind of the nature of how certain organizations work, where they might have kind of multi-generational owners of the system. It might start out as like a salesperson owns it, and then they actually get an ops person, then that ops person hands it off to another person. So there's been a lot of hands in the cookie jar. So over-engineering is common because natural kind of human behavior is we're just going to build on top of stuff that's already there. So one of the things that we recommend is always kind of doing pulse checks around, are we actually using these things? Did we build with the right intention, but our end users are not actively using it? So for all of the folks on the operational side, your end customers are marketers or salespeople or success people. And so if you're building for a certain function, whether it's a dashboard or it's, hey, we want to qualify in this way, but you're just creating process for the sake of process, take a step back. The easiest way to realize this, just look at how much data is actually inserted for particular fields against your total population. And if it's anything less than, say, like 30%, unless it's something mission critical, just kill that field. Like, it's just not even worth the space. And what you'll find is you'll have a lot of fields that are probably less than like 2%, which means they're probably not really doing much for anyone. So over-engineering is common. In addition, just from like a data architecture perspective, automation tripping over itself. So building different automations for different functions, not really having a full vision or plan around, hey, how does everything work together? And this automation is causing an issue over here. Or worse yet, multiple teams that are trying to build and not being kind of harmonized with each other, right? So that's another common area. So in all the years I've been doing this, we've only had one instance where we recommended kind of the nuclear option of like, just start fresh. Like you're so far gone, just do a new org, migrate your data and start fresh. And that's after over 350 companies and counting. So I challenge those on this webinar today that you're probably not that bad. Again, do the audit. We'll tell you if you're bad or not. And if you are, we'll give you free advice on how to fix it.
Yeah, he's not challenging you to over-engineer your systems, okay? So it's challenging to get the audit. Yeah, that's so true. And I think that rings very true when you have marketing teams working, say, in a system like Pardot that has its own automation, or any marketing platform. And then Salesforce as the, powerful source of automation, source of everything. You don't want those two to conflict. And I think this is, I know this is not necessarily related to the content of this, but as people are starting to rework and migrate all of their old Salesforce automations, so workflows and process builder, into Flow, ideal opportunity to actually look at some of these automations.
Huge. Absolutely huge. And flows are just so much more powerful than their predecessors. So it's something where, especially if you have older things, just gut check yourself at least once every 6 to 12 months on, are we actually using this? Is it even turned on, or is it just taking up space? Because then it's just, you're cluttering the house more and more to the point where you become a hoarder and no one wants to be living in squalor. So clean your systems, make your life easy.
Go Marie Kondo. All right. All right. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much, Craig and Christina, for collaborating with us on this.
Of course. Happy to do it.
Right.
Thank you for having us.
See you soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Bye-bye.